Hello everyone. Today we'll be looking at the COUNTIF, VLOOKUP, and IF function in Excel. The COUNTIF function. The COUNTIF function is used to count cells that have specific data present in them. For example, we can use this function to count the number of cells with the name Brown in them. And to our left, we would see a depiction of how the COUNTIF function is used in Excel. So right there, we're counting the amount of persons with the surname Brown in the list. The format of the COUNTIF function. So the format is equal COUNTIF, open bracket, range, comma, followed by an open quotation, then an asterisk, the criteria, followed by another asterisk, then the close quotation mark, followed by a bracket, the close bracket. So to our left, we would have seen an example in the formula bar for the picture that is showing. So they are counting the amount of persons in the list with the surname Brown. So hence they would have inputted the function in the formula bar. So and it reads equal COUNTIF, open bracket, D2 to D10 would have been the range, and then the criteria would have been Brown. But in order for this function to work, you can't leave out any of the symbols. So you can't leave out the asterisk, you can't leave out the close quotations or nor the open quotations. And you'll be seeing a demonstration of how the COUNTIF function is used further on in today's video. So let's now move on to this scenario. So imagine you work in a shoe store and a customer asks for size 8 shoes. You need to search your inventory list to check availability and the corresponding price. How would you quickly find the correct size and its price without searching manually? So the customer needs a size 8 shoe, and you need to check if you have any available in store, as well as you need to check for the price, but you don't want to do this manually. So hence we would have to use one of the functions in Excel. So now I'm going to introduce you to the VLOOKUP function. The VLOOKUP function, otherwise known as the vertical lookup function, it is used to search through records in a spreadsheet and return specific data based on the criteria that is specified in the function. So this is the format for the VLOOKUP function. Equal VLOOKUP, open bracket, lookup value, table array, column index number, range lookup, close bracket. And please pay attention to all the commas. So you can't leave them out when you are inputting this function in the spreadsheet cell. And here's an example of how this function could be typed into the spreadsheet cell. So equal VLOOKUP open bracket H5, comma, A3 to or A3 colon D8, comma, 3, comma, false. So the H5 right there stands for the lookup value. The A3 to D8 stands for the table array. The numeral 3 stands for the column index number, and false is the range lookup. So what do we mean by lookup value, table array, column index number, and range lookup? So the lookup value is the value you are searching for in column 1. So the value you are searching for in the first column, that's the lookup value. The table array is the range of the data in the table. So remember the range, it is a group of cells in a spreadsheet that has been selected or highlighted. The column index number is the number of the column that will contain the value you want. And the range lookup, it can either be true or false. So if it is that you want to find the closest match, then the range lookup would have been true. And if it is that you want to find an exact match, then the range lookup has to be false. So considering the scenario that was previously shown, and as it pertains to the customer wanting a size 8 shoe, the range lookup would have to be false because this person wants an exact match. So you don't want the closest match, they want the exact match, the size is true. So if we were inputting a function for that particular scenario, then we would have to use the range lookup false. So important point to note. So the VLOOKUP function only works vertically, so that's from top to bottom, within the first column of the specified table. It can't look to the left or search backwards through other columns. So the VLOOKUP function in Excel, it searches from top to bottom, and it cannot look backwards, so it can't look to our left. It can't look to our left. It can only return a value from the right. Here we have another scenario, and before I read the scenario, we will also demonstrate the VLOOKUP function as we go further on in today's video. So now let's get back to the other scenario. So if it rains, I will take an umbrella. If not, I won't. So have you ever had to make decisions based on a certain condition? So I'm thinking you guys might be responding yes. So based on this example that is presented here, if it rains, I will take an umbrella. If not, I won't. Do you think that this example is based on a certain condition? If your answer is yes, then you're indeed correct. So this takes us into our next function. So this now is the if function. The if function is used for making decisions. The if function tests for a condition, and then depending on the results of the test, it performs one of two calculations. The following comparison can be used in an if function. So it can be used to compare things to see whether or not they are the same, so whether they are equal, whether they are not equal, whether they're less than, whether they're less than or equal to, whether one is greater than the other, or whether one is greater than or equal to. And please take note of the various signs as it pertains to the different comparisons that can be carried out with the if function. So the format of the if function is equal if, open bracket, you have the logical test, comma, value if true, comma, value if false, and please take note that the value if true has to be in open and close quotation, as well as the value if false. And there we have an example at the bottom. So equal if, open bracket, B3 greater than 50, so that's a logical test. Pass would therefore be value if true. So if the person's score is greater than, if the person's score in B3 is greater than 50, then we would want to see the word pass appear. But if it is that the person's score is below or is less than 50, then we would want the word fail to appear. So here's a little summary. The COUNTIF function is used to count cells that have specific data present in them. So remember the one where we wanted to count how many persons had the surname Brown inside the class or in the list? The vertical lookup function is used to search through records in a spreadsheet and return specific data based on the criteria that is specified in the function. So if it is that we have a long list with students' name and grade, and we don't want to manually search the list to find a particular student, we can use the VLOOKUP function to present the student's grade for us. And then the if function, it is used for making decisions. So you have the condition and you want to know whether somebody passes or fail. You put in the condition and then it will make the decision for you. So enough said, let's now get into our demonstration. So now I'll be doing a demonstration of how these functions are used in Excel. So starting with the COUNTIF function. So we have a pass or fail list. So we have students' names such as Mary Brown, Joanna Foster, and John Braham, Shantae Brown, Jalen Wright, Antonio Brown, and Steve Bailey, as well as we have grades for these students. So we're going to use the COUNTIF function to count the number of students that has the surname Brown and also the number of students that has the surname Bailey in the data table right here. So we do not want to count them manually, so hence the reason for us using the COUNTIF function. So let's input the COUNTIF function in the cell right here. So let's go equal COUNTIF, open bracket, we input the range. So this will have to be the list containing students' name, or the column containing the students' names. So the range right there would have to be A3 to A9, followed by a comma, followed by the open quotation, followed by an asterisk. We want to count the number of students with the surname Brown, so hence the criteria would have to be Brown, followed by another asterisk and the close quotation, then close bracket. Then we can go ahead and press enter and allow the COUNTIF function to count for us. So right here, the COUNTIF function would have presented the answer 3. So it is simply saying that 3 persons from the list has the surname Brown. And we can check that manually just to see if the function was performed accurately. So we have Mary Brown, Shantae Brown, and Antonio Brown. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to do the same thing to count the amount of persons with the surname Bailey. So once more, it's equal COUNTIF, open brackets, highlight the range. So again, A3 to A9, because that's the cell containing the students' names, followed by a comma, open quotation, followed by the asterisk, followed by the name that we want to count, so which is Bailey, followed by another asterisk, followed by the close quotation, and then the close bracket, and we enter. So right there, we would have 1 person in the list with the surname Bailey. So moving right along, now we're gonna go ahead and we're going to use the VLOOKUP function. So remember, the VLOOKUP function, it is used to search. So we are going to search for some scores for 2 students. So we want to know the score for Anjan Braham and Jalen Wright. But we don't want to search the list manually. So hence we have to input the VLOOKUP function in the cell right there. So let's go equal VLOOKUP, open brackets. So now we need the lookup value. So remember, the lookup value is in the first column. So the lookup value is right here, because we're going to use the name Anjan Braham to search for the score. So the lookup value is right here, not over here, but right here in the VLOOKUP table. Followed by a comma. Then we need to highlight the table array. So we need the range. So where do we want the VLOOKUP function to search? So we want it to search all of this area from Mary Brown with all of the grades. So the range would therefore be A3 to B9. Then we're going to have our comma. Next, the column index number. So the scores, what column are the scores found in? So is it column 1 that consists of student's name, or is it column 2 that consists of student's grade? So the answer would have to be 2, because that's where the scores or the grades are. Followed by a comma. And remember now, the range lookup, it can either be true or false. So true if you want the closest match, and false if you want an exact match. So we want the exact score for Anjan. Hence, we're going to use the range lookup false. Close bracket and we enter. So right then and there, the score for Anjan is 60. We're going to do the same for Jalen. I could have just gone ahead and used the autofill, but I'm going to go ahead and input the function once more for persons who haven't gotten it as yet. So equal VLOOKUP, open bracket, the lookup value, not over here, but right here in the lookup table. So we highlight the cell, so that's D7, comma, the table array. So where do we want the function to search? We want it to search the student's name and also the student's grade, followed by a comma, then the column index number. So we want to find the score for Jalen Wright. So which column over here contains the scores or the grades? Is it column 1 that has the student's name, or is it column 2 that has grades? So once more, the column index number would have to be 2. And then the range lookup, either true or false. So true for the closest match, false for the exact match. So we want the exact score for Jalen. So we input false, then we close our bracket and we enter. So that's how we use the VLOOKUP function to search for student score. And remember, this function, it can't work to the left. Can't work to the left. It has to work to the right. So it looks up and down in this first table right here, and it returns a score from the column to our right. And now we're going to use the if function, because realize we have a table right here, or a column right here that says status. So we need to know if these students would have passed or failed depending on a certain condition. So hence we have the third table right here. So we have the rule and we have possible status. So if a student scored 90 and above, then they would have passed. But if it is that they scored below 90, then they would have failed. So now we're going to use the if function to help us with making such decisions. So equal if, open bracket. So what's the logical test? So if it is that they score 90 and above, then we want the word pass to appear in the cell. But if it is that they score below 90, then we want the word fail to appear. So Mary Brown, she would have scored 90. Mary Brown's score is in the cell B3. So if B3, what comparison sign you think we can use now? Remember, the score is 90 for Mary Brown, and it is said that once the score is 90 and above, then we have to use once the score is 90 and above, then we have to write pass beside the person's name. So if B3 is greater than or equal to 90, comma, value if true. So if this is true, if it is greater than 90 or equal to 90, then we want the word pass to appear. But if it is below 90, then we want fail to appear. Close bracket and we enter. Gonna do the same for Johanna. Equal if, so Johanna would have scored 94 if, open bracket, the logical test. So if the cell containing Johanna's score, so that's B4. So if B4 is greater than or equal to 90, comma, then we want pass to appear, close quotation, comma. But if it is below 90, then we want fail to appear. Close brackets and we enter. Gonna do one more and then I'm gonna use the fill handle. For Anjan Braham, it's 60. The grade is 60. So let's go. Equal if, open bracket, highlight the cell with the score, that's B5, greater than or equal to 90, comma, that's a logical test. So if his score is greater than 90 or equal to 90, we want the word pass to appear. But if not, we want the word fail to appear. Close bracket and we enter. So this student would have failed because the 60 is way below 90. So I'm just going to use the fail handle to complete the rest. So I click in the cell and make it active. And I come to the bottom right corner and I drag it all the way down to the last person. And there we have it. And if we click on the last person, who is Steve Bailey, we can still see the formula in the formula bar. So that's basically how we use the COUNTIF function. So we use the COUNTIF function to count specific criteria for specific persons. So we want to know how many persons in the list has the surname Brown. We use the COUNTIF function. For the VLOOKUP, we use it to search. And remember, it can only look up and down in the first column and return a value from the right, not the left. And then the if function now, it is used to help us with making decisions. So we can't leave without giving you an activity to try on your own. So I'm going to pull up a worksheet activity. And this activity is tailored for persons who have Microsoft Excel on their devices and also for persons who don't. So the instruction says that you're going to examine the data table below and answer the questions that follow by writing the appropriate spreadsheet functions that can be used to carry out the following calculations. So in the data table, we have a list with student's name, and we also have some scores, and in addition to that, we have a VLOOKUP table. So the first question says that you are to write a function that can be used to count the number of students with the last name Miller. So definitely we would have to use the COUNTIF function. So we would input in the cell. So we would input equal COUNTIF, open bracket, the range. So the range that we want, we would have wanted the function to count. And in this case, we would have to start from A2, from the first person's name. So A2 colon A7, where we have the last name, David Miller. A7 followed by a comma. Then we need to put in the criteria. So we have open quotation, followed by an asterisk, followed by the name that we want to search, that we want to count, followed by an asterisk, followed by close quotation, then close bracket. So if this is your answer for the first question, then you are indeed correct. So the second question, you are required to write a function that can be used to locate Emily Miller's score. So you're going to search for Emily Miller score. I remember, so based on the video, you would have known which one to use for the lookup value. So is it this one or is it this one? Number 3, write a function that can be used to locate Alice Johnson's score. So that's similar to Emily Miller's score. So you're going to use the same function for that one. So write the function that you would have entered in the spreadsheet cell. Next question, write a function that can be used to determine if Sarah Wilson passes or fails, given that the pass mark is 60%. So write a function that can be used to determine if Sarah passes or fails, given that the pass mark is 60%. So you are to decide whether you're going to count right here, or you're going to search for something right here, or you're going to make a decision. So after you would have answered that question, then you would have known which function you are to use. And then for the last one, write a function that can be used to determine if David Miller passes or fails if the pass mark increases to 77% and above. So once more, check to see if you're going to count for some specific conditions or specific criteria, or if it is that you're searching for something, or if it is that you are going to make a decision. So once you have answered those questions, then you would have known the function that you are going to use, and you can go ahead and highlight your various ranges, and you know the format for each of the functions. So now we can jump back to our PowerPoint presentation and wrap up. Before we close off, we have a bonus question. So, and it reads, a student's score is entered in cell C5. If the score is 60 or above, the student will pass. If the score is below 60, the student will fail. So let me go again. A student's score is entered in cell C5. If the score is 60 or above, the student will pass. If the score is below 60, the student will fail. So go ahead and leave your answers to that question in the comment section below, and I'll be sure to respond to your answers. If it is that you have not yet subscribed to the channel, please ensure you do so before leaving. Also, please remember to give this video a thumbs up, and I'll see you all very soon.